Welcome to Getting Defensive Weekend Primer presented by Gridiron Ratings. I'm your host, JJ Wenner, and tonight we try to figure out what the hell is going on in the NFL for Week 15. Joining me tonight, luckily not on the COVID list himself, Gridiron Ratings Senior IDP Analyst. You can find him on Twitter at the IDP Tipster. Gary Van Dyke, how you doing, Gary?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Feeling a little feverish, but I don't think it's anything COVID related.
Well, I'm pretty sure you're at least 6 feet away from me, so I will be safe for tonight. Except stopping in is the host of IDP First Take on Tuesdays, Kraig Reith, looking festive. How are you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm glad to jump on here once this season, at least, be on your show. Try to give a little insight if I'm able to, and hopefully we can find some winners for people.
Your mouth to God's ears. I know I could use some winners for this week. Well, gentlemen, let's get to it. COVID is dominating the conversation as the NFL faces its toughest challenge of the year. Over 100 players are now on the list, and some are calling for games to be postponed. Gary, how are you navigating COVID this week?
Well, I'm simply just applying what I do know. I'm going to try to keep from reaching too far for some of these really deep plays. You know, we've got some guys that we know that we can count on in place of some of these COVID players. But as you're getting ready to mention teams like Cleveland and stuff, when you have every safety on the thing, you know, it's not really cool to go trying to figure out and reach during what we're assuming is your playoffs for these guys. You might have to, you know, and I might have to too in these deeper leagues. Well, all three of us, you know, you might have to settle with a name with a decent matchup over a pure flyer with a really good one. You know, because you're really just taking a swing at the fence at that point.
So basically, stick to the basics. Don't reach. Kraig Reith, anything you can add to that from your strategy?
Just pay attention to what's going on. You know, make sure you're giving yourself plenty of time in the mornings or afternoons if it's Saturday, you know, before the games. That way you're paying attention and you're able to either have access to a phone or computer to be able to jump in there and make a move if your league allows it, one. And then two, you know, if you're paying attention, you should be able to find someone even in the deepest of those leagues that at least get you something for points. And something's going to be better than that big fat zero because the guy went out and you weren't aware of the depth chart or something like that. So it's making yourself have enough time so you aren't having to scramble is going to be important, I think, and probably will change some games for people.
Sorry, Gary. I was just going to say, take the points where you can get them. Don't be fancy. Don't be fancy, Gary.
Yeah, well, that whole thing about them trying to, you know, people wanting to cancel games and everything. Supposedly, I believe they changed a lot of these rules and, you know, who could be on IR, who could be on practice squad and all this because they were preparing for it better this year, as in next man up. So it's not really surprising that we haven't had any of these games canceled because the way that they did this was supposed to, you know, cover their tracks. But at the same time, I don't think they was expecting a week like this, but they're toughing it out and we're going to have to do the same.
It is definitely going to get dicey. Now, before we start to kick off the games, just as a reminder, one of our listeners, Lynn Gelman, asked for some linebacker suggestions this week. They were kind of up against it. So as we start going through these first games, let's keep a reminder to look out for some linebackers for Lynn. Now, Saturday games, great time of year. First up, Raiders at the Browns. Now, Denzel Perriman, back-to-back, did not practice. He sat last week. Are we firing up Divine Diablo again, Gary?
Oh, yeah. I'm not going to be shy about it this week. If we got to have him, we can see what he can do. the vibe I got from what I was looking at, and don't quote me because I could be wrong if Littleton had a problem, but I think he basically replaced Littleton in this whole situation with even Littleton healthy. Whether he was 100% healthy, I don't know, but I know he got to play a lot of the snaps, and then they brought in KJ Wright's been a starter, but he's been a strong side linebacker and only been getting a certain amount of snaps, and his went up to full time too. I'm not shy. I've got him in my lineups where I need him. How about you, Kraig?
Yeah, that linebacker core, the last game at least, was just a complete mess. And you're going to have someone, and Wright just hasn't done a whole lot this year to warrant really wanting to plug him in there. And it seems like Diablo, like Gary said, is the other guy that they're giving those snaps to. So in a decent matchup against the Browns, where I think teams are going to end up running a lot, probably both of them, just because of what's going on with COVID. I think it's a nice situation if you're able to pick them up.
And a little bit of a bonus there too is he's actually a defensive back in the sleeper leagues.
Yep.
So you can get that maximized linebacker point potential playing him in the DB spot if it works out that way. But I guess realistically on sleeper you don't have a choice because I don't think they got a dual designation on him. But as either, depending on what your sites have, linebacker, DB, he should be solid and ready to go.
Now, on the other side of the ball, the Browns are hurting. I think they're leading the league or second in the league in COVID with players out. But John Johnson, Troy Hill, Ronnie Harrison, Tack McKinley, Fede Odenigbo, everybody out this week. Are we searching for backups, or are we just going to avoid the Browns defense this week? Kraig?
I think it might be the opposite, where there's enough guys out that you might be able to find someone farther down the depth chart that's going to end up getting tackles just because they have to have someone out there getting tackles, and their defense as a whole is probably going to end up being weaker. I didn't see if they'd said that Harrison was out, for sure not, especially with these new rules that are changing. But between him and Delpit, if one of them plays, I think they're going to be in a great position to get you points. I know Delpit just got put on there too, and this is Thursday night. We're going into Saturday for that game. There's not a whole lot of turnaround time, but if one of them is able to, with those new rules, I think they just passed earlier tonight about guys being able to come off quicker if they have those negative tests. You definitely have a shot, but if you're getting down to the third string guys, what's his name, Moffitt or something like that down there, guys that most people haven't heard of, you're really probably better off finding someone that you're aware of that's going to get a snap count rather than just throwing up a prayer like that.
Yeah. And I'm sure we're going to talk about a few of these people too, as long as we go through these matchups. So, I wouldn't reach. I wouldn't go reaching that far. We do have to figure, I think, like Walker for them, he's not on the COVID list, but he's coming back from injury. He missed last week. I think Malcolm Smith stepped in for him. I was trying to look. I was thinking that I wrote it down here that he actually was back to practice, but I'm trying to make sure.
Smith and Phillips both played last week. They kind of split it.
Did they?
Yeah.
Do you know off the top of your head? I'm looking for him here. It should be. I had that written down. I could have swore.
JOK was their main linebacker on the field for.
Right. And he's probably going to, he's, if they're all banged up in that secondary, somebody like Walker, if Walker plays, I can't find it at the moment if he is, but if
he's on the COVID list as of right now.
Right.
He went on December 9th.
Okay. JOK, these guys that are your mainstay kind of guys or whatever, they're going to feast because there's a reason that they're backups. So you could probably give like JOK a bump or Walker a bump. For the fact is they're going to get a few extra tackles from those other guys missing tackles or being out of position because they're not used to running with the first team defense. So, it's counterproductive as in how many guys are missing. But, for those names that we do know, it could be, a little bit of a boost for them. They're going to have to work hard.
Now, jumping to the Saturday night game, we have the Pats at the Colts. Kyle Duggar is back, ready to start. Kraig, I'm starting him in a league I need him in. Am I making a mistake, or should we expect a good night for him?
I hope not, because if you are, I'm making the same mistake. In that league, I faced Gary in this past week. Duggar was one of my guys that wasn't playing, but he's back, and I'm going to be needing him because my whole secondary, I was counting on Harrison, and of course he, ran into COVID, and I was thinking, well, I can go get Delpit, and like, well, apparently I can't go do that either. So it's back to the drawing board, and hopefully I can strike gold 2 weeks in a row. But yeah, I mean, Duggar's played really well all year long for the Patriots when he's been out there, and against a team that is physical and likes to run. I think he's a great kind of guy because he's not afraid to get up into the box and make tackles and get feisty. So I'm hoping we get a lot of points out of him too.
Gary, anybody on the Colts side that you are recommending we start?
Well, you can't sit Darius Leonard. So Buckner doesn't have. He's got a solid matchup this week against Patriots, but it's only solid because it's him. So I wouldn't expect him to reach his ceiling. But I mean, how do you sit DeForest Buckner unless you happen to have Aaron Donald or somebody like that you're only playing one or two guys? But in a deeper league, you got to play Buckner,
especially this week.
Right. I like. Let's see. I know
Muhammad had a decent week last week.
Who?
Muhammad.
Yeah,
defensive end.
Yeah, I did. And he's so frustrating because he could be just in that same category with Buckner and be solid, but he's been inconsistent. I don't know if they gave him a little bit less playing time for a few weeks ago because he wasn't performing every week. But I mean, again, especially with these COVIDs and stuff, he's definitely a target this week. But just solid. I wouldn't expect him to get a sack necessarily.
All right, let's move to the Sunday games. First up, Cowboys at Giants. Woo! That Cowboys line looked good last week. Now, they're playing the Giants, so I'm assuming everybody on that defensive line is a must start, Gary.
No, not for me. I don't trust just the interior defensive line of the Dallas. They got that rookie Neville or something. I think
Gallimore.
He just got back into action, I believe,
last week.
He actually, he did fairly well. But I mean, the track record of these guys, no, I'm not going there this week. I'm telling Gridiron Ratings members and the start sit charts to keep an eye on the rookie Neville. But realistically, I'm not starting in the interior guys. Now I am starting, Lawson and Gregory. Of course, those two just came back from IR.
Lawrence, correct?
Lawrence, yes. I apologize. Lawrence.
That's all right.
Lawrence and Randy Gregory. I'm going to play both of them, and I'm going to expect them both to have really good games. The one that I'm worried about for most people is people got, they got attached to Armstrong. And when Gregory came back, he did dip into Armstrong's snaps last week. And Armstrong still managed to pull out a big play, I think, and pad the box score. But it's going to be really risky this week to think that you can stick Armstrong in there, because of the fact that Randy Gregory is in his second game back. He's probably going to command more of those snaps, and it's going to give Armstrong a lot less opportunities to make a big splash play. So, during this point in time, I'm not going to take a swing at that.
Yeah, Armstrong dropped from 73 to 43%.
Yeah, and I could see that down to like 20 if they don't rotate him inside, but more likely that it'll drop. I can't trust it.
Kraig, anybody you're looking at on the Giants side to start?
Yeah, it's one of those just yucky situations where I had Williams in a couple leagues, and he just, hasn't done a whole lot lately in general. And I've been trying to find someone to move away from. Finding interior line guys that you can trust each week are, just sort of a pain. So I'm probably staying away from the defensive line in general. Linebackers is not a whole lot, but we know that Dallas is still going to try to run the ball. So I think you got to stick to I think it was Crowder still getting the majority of the snaps there in the middle for them. So I'd be fine starting him. Secondary, it's sort of it's a nice matchup, but there's not a whole lot that I like there either. with their safeties. I mean, McKinney and Logan Ryan was back the past couple of weeks, so I'd be all right starting those guys. But there just isn't a whole lot to get excited
on
about.
the COVID list right now.
It is. Oh.
I'm going to get a little bit. I'm not getting defensive, but I'm going to. I'm going to do something here, Kraig, because I'm just opposite. Dallas is like top 3 in allowing points to the interior defensive line. They're not allowing anything off the edge. So I'm definitely not looking at Carter or the rookie or whoever they got rushing off the edge. But when it comes to that interior defensive line, I'm hoping Williams plays. I think he has a productive game because of the just mass production they allow. And then I believe that there's Johnson and another kid.
Dexter Lawrence is one of the guys.
Okay, Dexter Lawrence. I like Dexter Lawrence is a solid matchup. If Williams was out, then I wouldn't actually. I mean, I've seen the kid play a little bit, but the Austin Johnson, which I think he might be injured, so he might be questionable. Beyond that point, I wouldn't reach to anybody else. But I don't mind that defensive line matchup for them, especially in this situation.
All right, let's go to the Texans are visiting the Jags. Urban Meyer is gone. Shocking. Thank God.
As an Ohio State fan, hey, Florida, he's all yours.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone wants him right now.
No. Do we think he'll end up on TV somewhere? Do you think somebody will give him a gig?
Ooh, I don't know. I think he might have crossed that line kicking the punter.
I think you could see him show up for some bowl game on some network somewhere as a personality. Probably not for the whole game, but give it a month or two, and people's memories are short as far as forgiving. And now that's 2 weeks ago or whatever it is, and they move on to whatever the next big headline is. So it wouldn't surprise me, no.
Yes, I tend to agree with you, Kraig, on that one. Now, Houston is facing a rash of people on COVID list. Kirksey, Camus, Grugier, Hill, both on the list. Are we firing anybody up here, Gary, for linebacker?
Well, I'd fire up Hewitt. I wouldn't have any trouble firing him up in this situation with one or both of them out. I wouldn't. It's not a great matchup on paper to begin with, even if it was Kirksey or Hill. But, the production by default, we got to figure something's going to happen for Hewitt. I suspect he could be solid in a deeper format.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were just pausing. That is my fault.
No. Yep.
Miles Jack, back-to-back did not practices yesterday and today. Are we worried at all about his availability for the Jags this weekend?
Well, now I am. I missed that one. Sorry. Go ahead, Kraig. You got anything on that?
No, I mean, it's just you want to talk about a depth chart that you have two guys that you've seen all year and you'd be all right with him and Wilson, and then you go beyond that and they don't have anyone that's barely played, in terms of Dakota Allen or Shaq Quarterman. Those guys got a little bit of playing time this year, but it's pretty much just been Wilson and Jack. So, man, I don't know how you trust anyone if either one of those guys are out.
Well, not at this point.
Yeah, for what we know, they might slide a safety in like Divine Diablo.
On that same side of the ball, I'm really curious about Josh Allen. And he's hit a wall for the last 3 weeks. He hasn't done very well. In this matchup, he should have a nice bounce back, folks. I wouldn't hesitate. He got you probably where you're at if you're in the playoffs. He just didn't help you much for the last few weeks. But this is let's see. I'm going to let you know if it's how high it is.
How high is it?
How high is it? It's top 3 at the moment for me. So I don't think there's going to be any problem with Josh Allen getting some production this week.
I'm pretty sure most of us could probably get some pressure on the Texans this week. They don't have a lot of people starting for them. Marcus Walker's out, Terrence Brooks, Terrence Marshall. Anything else we want to talk about in this matchup? I don't know if anybody cares.
Nah, not really. I'd go with your regulars if they play.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what the Jags do. See if they come out with a little bit more fight in them now that they're not getting kicked during warmups.
I think they will, and I think it's a good spot if there's a guy, like someone who's been getting a lot of playing time, sort of opposite of Josh Allen. I think it's Dwayne Smoot. He's had some big games. He hasn't been consistent at all, but it's a nice matchup, and he's getting playing time. And if you're desperate or in one of those deep leagues like that, 16 teams start 4 linebackers and 4 defensive linemen or whatever. I don't have a problem shooting your shot on a guy like that that's been able to have big games this year in the right matchup.
I'm not really excited about the Jags secondary either. Houston just, they they gotta be better downfield on offense for the Jags to be a decent play on IDP. So when it comes to Wingard and
Rashawn Jenkins,
yeah,
he's been letting me down lately.
Yeah, I'm fairly disappointed with him on the season. I really thought that he would do a lot more for them. Wingard, he's been getting the job done, but this is not an appealing matchup for him either. Even if Jack was out, he might get a couple more, but I don't think he's going to see his ceiling.
All right, gentlemen, let's move on to the Titans at the Steelers. Now, as far as team defense goes, the Titans are coming off a trouncing of Houston last weekend. Do we ride them into the struggling Pittsburgh Steelers? Kraig?
I don't really think that I'm completely comfortable with it. As Ben, it's been a weird sort of little late season renaissance for him where he's actually played better as the season's gone on. I mean, I said for the first half of the year into the second half year that I thought he was completely washed. But it seems like lately they found a little bit of magic where he's been able to actually put up good numbers in real life and for fantasy teams. And I still, the Titans secondary, the safeties have come along with Hooker getting healthy and they're playing well, but I still don't like their cornerbacks overall. And we know the Steelers are going to be throwing the ball because they haven't had a lot of success lately just running it. A lot of Najee Harris's points have been coming from passes dumped off to him. So I think that you could see a lot of points in this game on both sides, actually. So team defense-wise, I'm not overly confident in either one of them.
Gary, who are you firing up?
Well, let's see here. I'm
besides the obvious, right? TJ
Yeah.
Watt, Cam Hayward, like all the normal guys.
Right. Oh, yeah, I really like Wormley. You guys know that I've been on Wormley for quite some time. This is a really right matchup for him to bounce back. He was pretty. He didn't do much last week, but it wasn't in the MSR or the matchup for him either. So I really like that this week. Status quo the rest of the way for me. I'm not playing Fitzpatrick. I know I got a question. I think we have a question while we're on it. What was that question? It was Poyer, Fitzpatrick, possibly?
Poyer, Bell, and Fitzpatrick, I think.
Struggling between Poyer, Bell, and Fitzpatrick. Need a high floor.
Well, I mean, if you're only going with one, it's Bell for me this contest. I'm sitting Fitzpatrick everywhere I can. Poyer, I believe, will be solid. Who do they have? Who's the Bills have?
Carolina,
Panthers.
I think. Yeah,
Carolina. At one point, no, actually, I'm going to take that back. It's going to be real iffy on Poyer too. Bell's really the only one that's standing out as a really great matchup. The Panthers used to allow a lot of points to the safety in the secondary until Cam Newton got behind the center. So that's off the table now. So definitely Bell and Poyer's serviceable. Fitzpatrick, I'm nervous about if he doesn't get a big interception or something. He's not going to pad that box score that much in this matchup.
Are you with him, Kraig? Are you leaning Bell out of these three?
Yeah, out of those, Bell is, from looking at the rankings that I have and stuff, he's the clear winner out of those. And maybe it's just a preference. I'd go with Poyer because I think he's just more consistent overall than Fitzpatrick. So if I had to pick a second one, Poyer would be my second choice.
Yeah, and I think Bell has both the ceiling and the floor that you're looking for in this matchup, Tyron Miller. Let's go to our next game. My beloved Jets are visiting the Dolphins. Now, before the season, I was pretty nervous about Jalen Phillips, his injury history. He had quit football, come back to football, but wow. I mean, he is impressing this year. He's going to extend his sack streak to 6 games against my terrible Jets. Are you guys feeling as good about Phillips as I am, Gary?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, he's proven he himself the last few weeks. He's came on strong. There's no reason to think that he can't do it against your Jets. I'm sorry, because they just allow so much.
We're giving.
Right. When it comes to that whole defensive line, I mean, Wilkinson, the other defensive end, I'm not going to pronounce his name right anyway. Yeah. Him, he's in for me. Even Winkler, I'm going to call him Winkler. What's his name? He's a outside linebacker. Yeah, right. Even him, I believe he's going to have a solid contest.
Did I say that right?
Ginkle.
Ginkle. Sorry, I had bourbon on the mind.
Winkle.
I apologize.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, that whole front line, I'm definitely going to make sure they're in. At least even Sazier, I believe, or Sellers got a piece last week, and they were having a little bit bigger of a rotation the last time they played. And, there might be some reaching there, but it's possible. But you probably should stay safe and go with the known names and just look around. I'd rather have, I'd rather have a name with a mediocre or a medium than I would just a complete flyer reach guy with a good contest.
The Dolphins have really been rotating their defensive line. I think they had 5 guys with over 50% of the snaps last week. So there is a solid rotation. So everybody's getting an opportunity. So it's going to be a rotisserie to see who gets the actual big plays against the Jets. Now, on the Jets side, who is Elijah Riley, and why don't I know more about him? Where did he come from, Kraig?
Well, see, we had Tripp say something about him. Do you remember? I'm sorry, Kraig.
Last week. I wasn't here last week.
No, I could have swore it was a couple of weeks ago when Mays first went down, and he was Tripp. If you're listening, buddy, I'm trying to remember. Maybe you didn't, but
he was undrafted last year, 2020, out of Army.
Yeah, I could have sworn that Tripp might have brought him up though. But either way, he's been on a roll. Go ahead, Kraig.
Eagles practice squad. So, he wasn't with the team for that long. And I think they just ran out of bodies, and they're, throwing whoever they can at this point.
I mean, Ashton Davis is terrible too. So
yeah, for like a 3rd-round pick too, you'd expect a lot more out of him. I think he was a higher pick for him. And I thought when they were starting to have these issues, man, here's his chance. But yeah, it's not been pretty.
Well, there was his chance, and there it went. The chance is gone. Now, of course, I'm firing up CJ Mosley. Unfortunately, I'm probably starting JFM in a few leagues, which hurts me. But with the COVID, I'm kind of desperate in a couple leagues. No, that's a terrible start, Gary. That's what your eyes are telling me.
Yeah, that is.
All right, so you're cut off. Kraig, tell me that's a good start.
I mean, I'm not excited about it, but another name that I do like, Quincy Williams. I think he's completely startable.
Yep. I believe on the interior defensive line, Miami's been pretty giftful in points. So Quincy Williams definitely a good one. I can't think of any edge rushers off of there that I want to play at all this week. I went back to Riley. I think Riley in some leagues it's possible that he might be a QB,
CB.
or CB, a cornerback, and not marked as a safety, so you might have an advantage here. I don't think he's going to have a great game, but I think he's going to have a solid enough game, just like he's been doing. I think we're going to expect the same production he's had for the last 3 to 4 weeks. It just seems like he's the guy that's just productive by default amongst the secondary, and we were hoping that would be Davis, but apparently it's not.
If you're in a big play league, you don't want him because I don't think he has. He might have like one tackle for a loss in the entire year. But if you're just looking for tackles, Riley's been pretty steady.
Yep.
All right. Staying in my area, Washington is coming to visit our Eagles. Now, Washington, man, so they have Cam Curl, Troy Apke, Matt Ioannidis, who else? Fuller, Allen, Toohill, Mayo, Smith Williams, Hudson, and Sweat are all on the COVID list.
Yep.
Who are we starting?
Well, I'm definitely starting Jonathan if he comes back. I had a surprise name here. I was kind of shocked this past week what they had done. I'm looking it up now. The guy actually was productive, whether it was just productive by default or what, I am not sure. But I believe his last name was Wise. Here it is.
Daniel Wise.
Yeah, Daniel Wise. He had a little production in 13 and now in 14 versus the Cowboys, which I mentioned to you guys, like to gift those points, right? So in the interior defensive line, he went 4 tackles, 3 assists, 1 tackle for a loss. That's doable. That's somebody you might want to keep in mind. And right now, if Jonathan Allen is out, I believe he's definitely a lock after that. So I might actually be looking at him now that we got some more names on the COVID list.
Now, is he playing more on the outside, the edge?
No, I'm interior. He's an interior. He'd be slotting in at basically defensive tackle. Jonathan Allen's playing. Then
who's playing edge?
They actually have even bigger problems now. I think that they had those 2 rookies, Torre or something, and then a Smith Williams.
Both of whom are on the COVID list.
So they're going to bring in the ball boys. They're,
Shaka Toney out of Penn State.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. He got the majority of on the edge last week because Smith Williams didn't even play last week.
Right. Right. And this is versus Philadelphia, which is they just gift those points off the edge. But man, I don't know. I'm not going there. I got to imagine there's got to be something else out there that you could use.
Well, Gary, I like to base all of my IDP picks on very careful reasoning. When I was about 8 years old, I watched Shaka Zulu, the miniseries, with my father.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. I thought it was the most amazing thing because he would let me stay up past my bedtime to watch it. I think I'm going to pick Shaka Toney up.
Whoa. Oh, yeah.
That's good reasoning, isn't it?
Yeah. I suppose my wife used to pick football pools that way by just who she liked their uniforms better, the color, the whatever, the design. So, yeah, rock and roll, man.
Man, if my nonsense got me to the playoffs, my nonsense shall help me succeed. Let's go to the Cardinals versus the Lions. Now, I know Alex Anzalone has been up and down, but he's questionable. He did get in some work today. Are we rolling with him if he's healthy?
No. One quick thing I wanted to mention: Josh Sweet of Philadelphia against Washington.
Yeah,
Josh Sweet is actually going. He's got a perfect opportunity to have a nice bounce back game. He's been inconsistent this year, but the matchup is right. So definitely, if you're going to pick somebody off of that DL of the Eagles, make it Josh Sweet. As far as what you just asked me, which I just drew a blank on, try me again.
Anzalone.
Oh yeah, I'm avoiding him. I mean, I think the writing's on the wall when I was reading that Josh Woods apparently had the green dot on from the first snap. So that means they took it away from Anzalone. So I'm not sure Anzalone was really going to play a full game, full amount of snaps. He might have been playing something like Maybean. I'm not sure where Maybean is right now on his injury. I believe he had an injury. But as far as Josh Woods, I mean, I would play Josh Woods. How about you, Kraig?
I played him last week as a desperation play, and that one league I'd fire him up again this week for the same sort of situation where they're going to be on the field a lot. Someone's got to get those tackles, and it's another team that just had health problems this entire year. So if you have a healthy linebacker that's going to be out there for the majority of the snaps, they're going to get you something. So, yeah.
And at least players like Josh Woods and Diablo, which we had already talked about with the Raiders, we do know something about these two guys. They have played over the last 2 weeks with a limited amount of snaps, a lot of snaps, whatever, but they've been productive. So this is not like deep flyers that we keep saying to avoid, that, third and fourth stringer for these COVID guys. So at least we do have a couple of new names that some guys might be able to grab off the waiver wire and get some good production out of this week.
Any interest in the rookie Derek Barnes?
Nope, not personally. Kraig?
Not really with what we've seen out of him, even when he got, I think it was almost 70% of the snaps last week. He just didn't do a whole lot. It was pretty much the Josh Woods show. So even if you're desperate, Woods is a better play and still less well-known than Barnes. So,
no. And for the Lions, best case scenario, say Anzalone's healthy, say Maybean, and then Barnes and Josh Woods are all healthy. I'm still willing to go Josh Woods. Just hearing that he was wearing the green dot last week, knowing that he's producing. I believe he's an undrafted kid or something. So he was really impressing them on the practice squad and got promoted prior to the problems they were having with injuries with Maybean. So, I have no problem.
All right. On the other side of the ball for the Cardinals, everybody's healthy. Are we anybody we're avoiding, or is it full go? Full go.
Golden. Now he has an opportunity to have a nice bounce back game. He does, but with his inconsistency over the last 5 or 6 weeks, him not being able. Last week he actually had a good matchup. I think he came up with 1 tackle. I can't remember what the snap counts are. It wouldn't matter to me. I'm ready to move on from him.
Anybody for you, Kraig?
I think he was mentioned on Tuesday night by James, but Zach Allen, he said, I think he was looking at a nice matchup and a guy that's still under-owned if you're looking for a deeper play on your defensive line or interior line.
Yep. Solid guy this week.
All right, and our final 1:00 matchup, the Panthers are visiting the Bills. Now, Hassan Reddick has slowed a bit after a very hot start. Are the Bills a good opponent to expect a rebound from him, Gary?
No, not really. It's kind of weird because Hassan Reddick has been down the last couple of weeks, and all of a sudden Jermaine Carter, which we have been pretty well disappointed with ever since becoming the middle starting inside linebacker. He's actually had a couple productive ones. I'm still avoiding Carter. I'm not a believer for whatever's the reasons going on. I'm just not going there unless I'm really desperate. When it comes to Reddick, I think it's possible that he can break his sack problem, or he's not been getting any sacks. I think he can possibly sneak in there for a sack. I said a snack. He's going to get a snack. So he's going to get a snack. He's going to get some production by default. If I've got somebody else that I want to play as an edge rusher, they better be a decent play. They better be somebody I know. As far as a linebacker play this week, I'm not playing either one of them if they're actually designated linebackers.
Kraig, how about you? Anybody on the Panther? The Panther side?
No, like the guys that you would normally play, like Thompson, I'm fine with playing, but I'm not trying to get fancy with that game. And, last week, even with a better defense overall, the Buccaneers didn't get a ton of pressure against Josh Allen. Now it sounds like he might be hobbled, which might give a guy like Reddick a better chance to get to him, but it's still not something that I'm going to be banking on if I have a better option. You're even someone, a tier below with a better matchup. So that whole Panthers defense has just sort of taken a downturn the past few weeks here in terms of real life how they were doing, and then fantasy production as well. So it's hard to trust those guys on that edge when you're looking at two different matchups.
Well, hey, but give me Burns before you give me Smith Williams off of Washington.
Oh, well, yeah.
Those guys, or Barrett out of Philadelphia. I should have mentioned him was sweet. It's a great matchup off the edge, but not for Barrett because Barrett's done less than I don't think Barrett's ever had this bad of a
Barnett.
Yeah.
Derek
Right.
Barnett.
Derek Barnett, yep.
Yeah. I don't think he's had this bad of a season. At least he's been fairly productive last year when the MSR was right, but he's not doing anything.
Yeah, he has
But I
two
would
sacks
play
the
Burns.
whole year.
I like Burns this week myself. So whether or not it's a catch-22 for me versus the Buffalo. Buffalo has protected the edge really well, but for whatever reason, for the last 4 to 5 weeks, they've actually moved up the board and allowing points off the edge. So I like the chance for Burns to rebound, and I'm going to go with a solid on him. I just can't trust Riddick this week. Something's up there.
Fair enough. Before we kick off our 4 p.m. games, let's go to the Road Warrior here. Asked for us to please rank Aaron Donald, Myles Garrett, Darius Leonard, Alex Singleton, Quan Alexander. Now, I'm assuming that means for this week.
I'm assuming.
So how do we rank them, Kraig? Who would be your number 1 and 2?
So if we're assuming that, these positions get similar types of points and it isn't a situation where, linebacker heavy scoring, I think I'm probably going to put Aaron Donald first, although it is, to me, I don't know how you can go wrong between him and Myles Garrett. They both have nice matchups. They've both been playing great. And like I said before, talking about that game, I think you're going to see a lot of rushing the ball in the Raiders versus the Browns, which is going to give Garrett an opportunity not only to get sacks like I think he's going to anyway, like he has most games this season, but get tackles for you. And Aaron Donald, we've seen how even against the Cardinals, he just wrecked them almost single-handedly. So, I'd say Donald and then Garrett, but I can't complain if you go either one of them, really.
I am probably just like they're listed. Donald, Garrett, Leonard, and Singleton would be tied for third. Alexander coming in last.
Singleton tied with Leonard?
Yeah, in this particular matchup this week, yes. Not in talent. Not in talent, folks.
You heard it here first. Darius Leonard and Alex Singleton are equals.
No. Don't spread that.
Gonna put that out on a tweet. All right, 4 p.m. games, gentlemen. Let's go. Bengals at Broncos. Logan Wilson, questionable. Back-to-back did not practices. Do we expect him back anytime soon, Kraig?
Not from what I've seen or heard. No, they said it was going to be like a multiple-week thing, and without him practicing, I don't see why they're going to throw him out here at this point.
Gary, Draymond Jones, back-to-back did not practices. What are we doing on the Broncos side of the ball?
I suspect. Okay, first I want to mention that Baron Browning laid an egg last week. This is going to be the perfect matchup against the Bengals for him to recover. I'm actually, if I remember right, the Bengals are really decent all of a sudden in allowing points off the edge, but not on the interior of the line. So I like your guy, Cooper, if Malik Reed is out again. It's a little bit questionable if Malik Reed is in because there's then going to probably be some kind of three-way rotation between Chubb.
Yeah.
What was the kid's name? Cooper?
Jonathan Cooper, yeah.
Yeah, Jonathan Cooper and Malik Reed. So if Malik Reed plays, it almost throws a wrench in it where I don't want to play any of the three, but if Malik Reed is out, then I have no trouble putting Cooper in and expecting a little bit better production than what Chubb is, because Chubb seems to be kind of stumbling along here and just getting it done. So, but I would play Cooper, and then the secondary, I think it's a great matchup for Jackson if he's in, and Simmons.
All right, the Falcons at the 49ers. Eric Harris, safety hybrid linebacker, is out for the year. Who is the next man up? Is it rookie Richie Grant or Jalen Hawkins? Kraig, which way are you leaning?
Gary alluded to it on Tuesday, and it seems like based on how they, had the guy sub in after Harris got hurt, it was going to be Hawkins, and I haven't seen anything saying that they're going to have Grant really play over him. Grant has disappeared over the past few weeks. He had played more earlier in the year, and with the Falcons seemingly actually having some playoff aspirations here, I don't know that they're actually going to be wanting to just throw a rookie in there that hasn't been playing lately. So if I had to say anyone, it's probably Hawkins, but I'm not personally feeling great unless, again, you're in a deep league going after him.
Gary, on the other side of the ball, anybody for the 49ers you're avoiding?
Well, I guess the most recent is that Al-Shares. I'm going to say it wrong. Why you give me all the tough ones?
Aziz. Just call him Aziz.
There you go. All right. I don't think he's practicing yet. I don't think he's practicing right now. Last that I had seen. So this might relate to the question that we had.
He didn't practice yesterday. He is questionable. No,
right. So he was asking for. He was asking. You can't trust Greenlaw. Warner should be fine. Hopefully, somebody like Josh Woods or somebody these guys that we've mentioned will help that guy out that asked that question. Nick Bosa is a must play. I actually like DJ Jones this week for a solid matchup. That's about, I don't know, once you get past the two linebackers, Nick Bosa and DJ Jones, everybody else becomes pretty risky. So I'm probably avoiding most of the rest of the 49ers unless I really got to dig in deep.
All right, jumping over to the Seahawks are visiting the Rams. The Rams are one of the harder hit teams right now by COVID. Where are we going? Jalen Ramsey's out. Sebastian Joseph Day, Justin Hollins, Jordan Fuller. I mean, Aaron Donald we're starting, but
Ernest Jones, folks. Ernest Jones. We had this Tuesday. Kraig is sitting there because we had this conversation on Tuesdays because of the waiver wire. But, again, folks, in case you missed that, and I'm going to take this second, please like, subscribe, and comment. After last Thursday's show, we got a lot of comments. Really appreciate that. And it's the best way besides subscribing and liking. Commenting means a lot when it comes to helping us out and supporting us on YouTube. So we really appreciate that. What was the question?
I asked, what the hell are the LA Rams going to do?
Ernest Jones is going to eat real well. Aaron Donald's going to eat real well. I believe. Von Miller's out, right? Or is that?
He is not on the. Oh, nope, he's on the list. Yep.
Yeah, Von Miller's on the COVID list. We used to have a good backup with Hollins.
Hollins is on the list as well.
Yeah, he's on the list too. So I wouldn't go trying to get any replacement there. I think Floyd's okay. He should be a solid and productive in this. Also, let's see. I don't know, Kraig, what do you got?
It'd be kind of weird given what we've seen out of his usage, but I think Trey Reader may end up playing more than we think too, just based on that linebacker core. Even, one of the guys that's been a backup that's gotten some play, that Okorono or something like that, is another edge guy. He's out with COVID too. So you're looking at 3 out of their top 4, or 3 out of the top 5 edge guys out. And Reader's a guy that's had experience playing across that linebacking core for him, and they're going to need
out as bodies.
Well. Reader is too. Well,
Reader's on the list.
Holy cow! Stay home.
I've got
Ernest.
no idea.
Ernest, stay home.
Ernest, put a plastic bag over your head and wait. No, don't do that.
Yeah.
Just wear 3 masks
for the next 3 games. I went through this. So he's got a upper solid game this week. He's got a solid game next week, and then he finishes out the year. I believe it was with Baltimore, which, if I remember right, but I do remember it was like a really strong matchup. So Ernest Jones, as long as he's healthy, he's in my lineups. for the rest of the year in these
Someone
deep
that was
formats.
out due to injuries, but he may be back. A guy, I think, Gary, you had mentioned earlier in the year, Terrell Lewis. He was another edge guy that, he hasn't been practicing a whole lot in prior weeks, so maybe he's avoided the COVID stuff from the team because he was hurt, and he'd probably be the next edge guy. Oh,
yeah, if he's active, he actually, before Hollins, he was doing well before Hollins. And he was being productive while he was out there, but then he got hurt. Hollins came in. Hollins got hurt. They get Von Miller, blah, blah, blah. So I'd be nervous about Terrell. But if you're looking for a deep dive, and we know that people are, and if you need an edge rusher, he's probably got it. Another one I would suggest, too, would be Gibson for the Bears. We've covered the Bears, right? No.
We have not gotten to the Bears as of yet. A little bit of a spoiler.
Uh-oh.
No, that is fine.
It's good foreshadowing.
It is good foreshadowing. Everybody loves good foreshadowing. All right. Well, on the other side of the ball for Seattle, 7 tackles for Ryan Neal last week, replacing Jamal Adams. Worth the start again, I'm assuming?
I am.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I wouldn't have any problems putting him out there. Rams are solid at allowing those points, so we probably could see that same type of ceiling this week.
All right. Any worry they're going to change a little bit of their offensive approach with the COVID? They might run more. Will that change anything in the way you're thinking, Gary?
I've actually had I had a couple of questions this week with this stuff coming up, and they're saying, oh, hey, because of this, is this going to change? Look, folks, nobody really knows, and in the past, the way that I've gotten through that is sticking with what I know. Sticking with what I know, it's no more of a gamble than trying to figure it out and trying to adjust from there. Just roll with the flow. It's the best you can really do at the moment.
Keep it simple, stupid. All right. Last 4 p.m. game. Packers at the Ravens. Chuck Clark is on COVID. I know they're out like their 3 top corners. I have no interest in whoever is replacing Chuck Clark, but do we know who is going to replace him?
No.
Do we care?
Levine, is that his name? Levine or something like that? He's been
I think Lancaster is the next tackle that's played the most for him, but it's a bunch of nothing
on the defensive line
for Clark after Kenny Clark.
Oh, I was talking about Chuck. Yeah,
Clark.
Kenny
Oh,
Clark.
I'm sorry. Wrong. Never mind.
I tell you
wrong.
who's actually interesting to me, Kraig, on the defensive line behind Kenny Clark. Tedderell Sladen actually had a solid week 9 when Kenny Clark left injured. Put up 4 tackles in replacement. Got some serious snaps. I'd be considering that the Ravens are banged up at QB.
Yeah.
Well, and they do give a lot of points off that front line. So, I mean, now that we're okay, the only person with Baltimore that I'm interested in that secondary this week is that you may be Avert or whatever. But usually, if Aaron Rodgers throwing down the field is for a touchdown, so there's not a tackle there. So, but Brandon Stevens is the only guy that I'm going to trust out of that secondary this week. He should have a good game. But back on the Kenny Clark thing, they allow a lot of points. Sometimes Lowry will slip into things. They got another guy. His name is Kingsley or something like that. Yep. I mean, if you're really, if you got to start like 4 DL, you're in some 16-team league, or this fella that you're talking about, yeah, sure, swing for the fence because somebody's got to be there to get the production that's normally given up by the Ravens. So it's a matter of figuring out who's going to have the snaps.
All right. If we're all done with that game, let's go to Sunday night. Saints are visiting the Bucks. Now, I am on the Davenport ship this week after a down week against my Jets. I know he came off of injury. They won that game easily last week and didn't really need to push him, but I'm confident that he has a bounce back week this week. I know we don't like playing people against the Bucks, but if you have Davenport, and this
He's
is a
on my
crazy
bench.
week, you're playing Davenport, right?
I know. He's on my bench. Him, Cam Jordan. Now the Bucks. I know it's a divisional game, and I know anything can happen. When it comes to that, and the numbers doesn't always matter and all this. But no, Davenport. Right after he got hurt again, I just, he sprouted up, got hurt, and I mean, come on. It was the Jets last week. Only thing he had to do was have his shoes tied, and he was going to get a tackle. And what did he do? Nothing. So, no.
He got an assist, Gary. I mean, come on. He technically got a tackle for you.
Thank you, Kraig.
Yeah. He fell down on somebody, didn't he? Anyways, I know.
Listen,
I do like
you don't
that.
even
I
need
like
to play
Davenport.
defense against the Jets. It's not fair to judge
Right.
Davenport against the Jets.
Right. They just, opposing lines and stand back and go, come on. Just run into
And then
me.
Zach Wilson just falls over.
Right.
Downs.
It's
terrible.
Davenport's got me nervous enough. I was on that bandwagon, and I still am possibly going into next year, but it's just right back to the same thing. He's hurt. He might be playing hurt. We don't know. I'm not interested in that during the playoffs, especially against the Bucs.
I'm in a league. I had told Gary about. It's an 8-team league, so it's completely, better waivers. It's just, with a bunch of friends, or 7 friends, I guess, if that's a bunch or not. But I've been just rotating people all year.
Bunch more than me.
And I dropped Davenport for Josh Sweat this week because of what Davenport had been doing and just a better matchup. I mean, those are the sort of guys you can actually find on the waiver wire, and I've had success this year. So I like Davenport. He was on that great streak, and he started the year off hot, got hurt, came back doing really well. Until I see it again from him for at least a game, in the playoffs, to Gary's point, it's really hard to trust him.
Yeah. Now, like somebody like that, the Phillips for Miami, playing the Jets. I'm all for that over Davenport or even Cam Jordan, for that matter, this week.
I guess I have trust issues. I trust too much. Gary doesn't trust enough.
Yeah.
I was hoping you were going to be Goldilocks, Kraig, and be.
I like how
right.
Kraig mentioned that. He's had luck with the waiver wire. Man, I have too. And I think that any IDP manager out there now, this has been the perfect year to stream a lot of good plays off the waiver wire because there's such the player pool seems to be almost twice the size it is with all the injuries or whatever's going on in a strange year. I've gotten plenty of good plays. I'm looking ahead. I've got leagues that the defensive tackles I'm playing. I got 4 DL to play, and I've got 4 defensive tackles and no edge rushers in whatsoever. And it's just that I've been getting paid off like Wormley. These guys have been paying off big time, and I love that. I think that it hopefully. I hate to say with this odd year, I've hated it, but I'm really hoping going forward, if this is how they're going to do it with the extended season, whatever it is that the NFL is doing with their players, I like it because it makes you work for it. It makes it easy. If you just put a little effort into it, you can still win. The set them and forget them days are about over from the looks of it.
Yeah, I know the waivers, especially in the league the 3 of us are in together, the IDP League. It's amazing that despite how many players we start in IDP, there are still players available on the waiver wires.
Yeah. And okay, I'm not going
to for the record, I do have the number 1 seed in that league.
I was getting ready to say that.
And Gary and I play each other, so
I think we were like top 3 in that our division or something. In that league, I think
was it the 3 of us who were the top 3?
I think it was, or we were all up there. Yeah, but
I'm blind luck, so don't look at me.
Oh no, you did real well. But I think it's a key thing to make sure that you can enjoy. If you can't work the waiver wire for IDP, because that's the nice thing about it. I don't think you can enjoy it as much. So when we structure those leagues, the bench is not that deep. You know what I mean? You got to kind of keep that bench kind of shallow because there's offensive guys you're not going to drop, Right. So you keep that bench and you can rotate. You just got to do your homework. And apparently, JJ, you've been doing your homework because you've really hit it off in there.
Well, look, Gary, I finished my master's degree, wrote
Yeah.
a 40-page paper. I've been doing a lot of homework.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of homework, but most of the homework I've been doing is tuning in.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where I learn.
12-2. It's a hell of a record.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll take it. It's better than all but one league. I have one league where I was 14-1 or whatever it was.
Wow. I got a 12-2 in the IDP incentive, and the rest of them are all like 10-3, 9, 8. I made the play.
Look at the humble brag. The rest are all just.
Oh yeah, humbly,
10-5.
Kraig wiped me out last week, so he come back, and I talked about this Tuesday. I had a nice 70-point lead. He went into had Aaron Donald and Jamison's backup cornerback play. Both of them.
Darius Williams and Chandler Jones were the other two. Yeah.
He had Monty. Didn't you have the wide receiver Monty too? But he did shit. So everything fell on your defense.
I had Mooney on that night game or whatever against the Packers, and he didn't do anything.
Yep. So Kraig took me out. And that was a money league too.
I was waiting for Gary to say here in that league the three of us are in that, Gary's like the 4 or 5 seed here, but he had the most points in the league, but being humble, it wasn't going to bring it up. So
sometimes you just
he overlooked it. I doubted his humbleness.
Right. Catch me after I either get beat or win the damn thing.
Let's just say, total points are what they are. My team plays good defense every week. And that's why I don't need to score a lot of points. Monday night, Vikings at the Bears. Whatever.
Well, Gary, you mentioned someone, didn't you?
Huh?
You had mentioned someone for the Bears. Was it Gibson?
Oh, Gibson. Yeah. I like that matchup.
Trevis.
As a solid matchup. I wouldn't expect anything huge, but I do like that matchup for him. I think him and Quinn will both have decent games. Of course, Quinn has been really tearing it up. But when you're looking, let's see, Rogan Smith, he's not practicing, I think, or no, maybe he was limited fashion today. I can't remember. Did you see anything on that, Kraig?
I saw that they had expected him to play, but I didn't check his practice.
I can check his practice.
It kind of comes out. If he's out, then Ogletree will be a better play default.
Roquan was limited today. He is questionable with a hamstring.
I can't play him because I have this certain thing with Johnny the Greek where I can't play Eddie Jackson, but I do believe Eddie Jackson's got another good matchup this week too.
Eddie Jackson is on the COVID list as of right now. 12-16.
And Houston Carson just broke his arm, so he's not playing back there.
Yeah. So where they got Bush or something? You can't go there if he is.
They have Tayshaun Gibson and probably Deion Bush.
No.
Tayshaun Gibson. I have him sitting around on a deep league.
Yeah, he did all right. I actually plugged him in last week. He had a nice matchup. He did mediocre, but he didn't. He did good enough that I wasn't mad. His ceiling's not real high.
Well, listen, Gary, that's all I hope for every week. Just not to make you mad. My ceiling's not that high.
No, that's just wrong.
I just hope I don't make you mad.
Yeah. Hey, no dirty O yet. We're rolling.
I'm resisting. Gentlemen, anything else with the Vikings and the Bears you want to talk about?
Sit the I'm not a fan at all of the Minnesota defensive line this week. Edge rushers are not, and I know that would seem weird against the Bears, but their numbers have fluctuated. And what's a woman? I'm gonna mess that up for
DJ
Minnesota.
Wonham.
Yeah, he actually had a good matchup last week, and he did nothing with it. So I just don't think that there's any consistency there. If I can avoid it, I'm going to. Michael Pierce just came back. He didn't get but so many snaps last week. If he had been fully healthy and been playing for a few weeks, I'd probably have no problem with him. But I don't think I'm going there. What do you think, Kraig?
If you're desperate, I think it's a fine matchup, just given how poorly Chicago's offensive line has played lately. But I think, to your point, there's better players out there that you can find, even if you're in a semi-deep league with interior linemen that you're feeling better about, that you probably shouldn't have to dive that deep.
That's going to be a terrible, terrible Monday night game.
I Concur. All right, gentlemen. It is time for final thoughts. Time for us to say goodbye. You can find Kraig. Thank you so much, Kraig, for joining us tonight. You can find him on Twitter at RotoHeatCraig with a K. Any final words, Kraig?
Don't get too cute, sort of like we started off the show. You're in the playoffs probably at this point, or, you're fighting for an extra draft pick in the toilet bowl or something. Man, don't get too cute and go digging for the sake of digging. If you have a guy with a decent matchup that you're just not that big of a fan of, don't go mining for gold where you're probably going to find lead or something like that.
I love metaphors. Finally, the OG of IDP can be found at the IDP Tipster on Twitter, and subscribe to the Gridiron Ratings for all of his IDP analysis. Gary, any final thoughts?
Why I gotta be an old goat?
Oh, gee, that means original gangsta.
All this time, I think he's calling me an old goat. Man.
Oh, my way. No.
Oh.
Original gangsta.
Oh, wow. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Well, if you were a young goat, he'd be calling you a kid. I don't know if you want to have him calling you a kid either. So.
Yeah, that's funny. I don't have much to add since I just made myself sound silly there. No, I really don't. I mean, we've
made
already
yourself
hit
sound
on
like
it,
an old goat.
Yeah, we're on the playoffs right now. We've probably given out the best advice we probably could, turned on a few names. I don't know about you guys, but I'm already thinking about next year. Some of us are out here trying to figure out who's going to be a sneaky play next year and everything. And no, I don't have much other than just good luck.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm at JJ Winner on Twitter. You can follow my crew over at Rider Dynasty on Twitter. Thank you to Kraig for joining us last minute. We always appreciate that. Thank you, Gary, for joining me. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Thank you to everybody for giving us the questions. Don't forget, you can find all of our old episodes on Spotify, Apple, wherever podcasts can be found. And make sure you tune in to the IDP First Take on Tuesdays with that guy, Kraig Reith, and the crew. And remember, your path to the title starts with Gridiron Ratings. Have a good night.